Improv can be found everywhere in cinema, and not just in comedies. It can be dramatic or scary, or even in a David Lynch flick. Some of the most famous scenes in Hollywood history have been completely off the cuff. Judd Apatow first made a name for himself in the entertainment industry through stand-up comedy and later through television. After working on the shows Freaks and Geeks, The Larry Sanders Show, and Undeclared, Apatow directed The 40-Year-Old Virgin as his feature film debut. Apatow's filmmaking style has been largely defined by improv comedy, as can be seen in the Linorama bonus features frequently included on the DVD releases of his movies. Improv is present on set in most scenes. Apatow's scripts provide comedic situations and setups, but he frequently allows his actors to play around and generate different punchlines. Improv can be found throughout the entirety of The 40-Year-Old Virgin, but one scene in particular stands out from the rest: the famous waxing scene. As shown in a behind-the-scenes featurette, Steve Carell was actually waxed on camera to capture his authentic reactions. 5 cameras were used to record the whole scene at once, as Carell and the other actors in the scene improvised reactions in Apatow's typical Linorama style.
Wow-wee! I'm sorry, I really don't swear this much.
Okay, you know what? I got a weak stomach, that's all I could really take.
As Apatow explained on The Rich Eisen Show, Carell, who co-wrote the script with Apatow, insisted on getting waxed for real. It was also revealed that the woman who waxed Carell had never done it before and lied to them during her audition.
The number one rule when you wax is you don't put the wax over the nipple, because you could just rip someone's nipple off.
Director John Cassavetes' Faces was a game-changer for independent film when it was released in 1968. Cassavetes was already a successful actor known for his roles in films like The Dirty Dozen, The Killers, and Rosemary's Baby. According to the biography Accidental Genius by Marshall Fine, Cassavetes used the money he earned as an actor to self-finance his own films. He was able to work completely outside of the studio system and create films that placed all emphasis on character and acting while striving for authenticity. Though it was his 4th time directing, Faces was Cassavetes' first film to break through to audiences and critics in a major way. The film earned 3 Oscar nominations for actors Seymour Cassel, Lynn Carlin, and for original screenplay. As good as his starting material was, it became stronger as it was explored through rehearsals and on the set. Cassavetes gave his small troupe of actors a concrete script, but afforded them the freedom to explore the material from different angles. Cassavetes himself contributed to this improvisational spirit while behind the camera by shouting out direction to the cast mid-scene, which he then had to figure out how to cover up in post-production. At over 2 hours long, Faces is composed of just a handful of long scenes, each which probe deep into the human psyche. Angel, not to be confused with the popular TV show of the same name, is a sleazy exploitation film from 1983. The sensationalized plot follows a 15-year-old high schooler who moonlights as a sex worker. She finds herself in danger when a deranged serial killer begins targeting her fellow coworkers. The unnamed serial killer character was an early role for actor John Deal, who would later appear in bigger projects like The Shield and Stargate. As explained by Joe Bob Briggs when he hosted Angel for an episode of his The Last Drive-In series, Deal was responsible for improvising the film's single most memorable moment. He had 0 dialogue in the film, so Deal faced a major challenge when it came to making his character memorable and effectively disturbing in only a handful of scenes. During auditions, director Robert Vincent O'Neill simply asked the prospective actors to be creepy without speaking. Deal rose to this task by bringing an egg with him, poking a hole in the top with a knife, and sucking the yolk out before crushing the shell against his mouth. O'Neill was so impressed by Deal's improvised audition that an egg-sucking scene was added into the movie.
I never saw it to fail. Give a man something to suck on and he's happy.
In director Mike Leigh's 2004 drama Vera Drake, the titular character is a working-class family woman who provides abortions unbeknownst to her family at a time when the practice was illegal in the UK. Imelda Staunton earned an Oscar nomination for her lead performance, and Leigh earned 2 Oscar nominations in the directing and writing categories. While the first 2 nominations were well-deserved, the third likely came as a surprise, considering the film didn't have a screenplay at first. Improvisation is at the heart of Leigh's directorial approach. Staunton explained that all she knew at the start of the project was that it would be set in the 1950s and that it would explore the subject of abortion.
Miss Wells, if you were to have the child, would you keep it or have it adopted?
I can't have it.
Everything else started from a blank slate, as she and Leigh began rehearsing and improvising the piece from scratch for a full 6 months. Staunton had never improvised before, but dove into the deep end and ultimately found the process exhilarating. The film's standout scene is the birthday party in which the police unexpectedly arrive, and Vera's secret activities come to light. As revealed in the book Mike Leigh on Mike Leigh, none of the actors playing the family had any idea the police were about to show up. Only Staunton knew that her character was performing abortions at that point, and the shocked reactions of everyone else were 100% authentic. In the book, Leigh described the scene as the result of an improvisation that ran for 10 hours straight.
I don't understand it.
I don't expect you to, Sid.
Quentin Tarantino is highly valued for his skills as a writer, so his sets are rarely home to improvisation, but there have been a few exceptions. One of the biggest improvised moments arose out of an accident during the filming of Django Unchained. During one of the film's most intense scenes, Calvin Candy, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, rants about phrenology and forcibly auctions off Broomhilda, played by Kerry Washington. DiCaprio told ABC News that a glass shattered and cut his hand when he slammed the tabletop. The delayed moment when he realized he was bleeding was kept in the final edit, and DiCaprio was able to stay in character and finish out the scene as his hand gushed blood. The bloody hand was incorporated into the rest of the sequence, with Candy even smearing his blood all over Broomhilda's face at one point. It's entirely possible that his wound was cleaned and fake blood was applied to his hand instead of DiCaprio rubbing his actual blood all over Washington's face, but the idea at least stemmed from the unexpected injury. From the very first scene of Apocalypse Now, the production was already unfolding in an unorthodox manner. The opening scene, which finds Captain Willard drunk and freaking out in a hotel room, wasn't originally in the script. It was entirely improvised by Martin Sheen while he was liquored up for real. During an appearance at the Dubai International Film Festival many years later, Sheen explained that the scene was shot on his birthday and that he had spent the entire day drinking before shooting even started. He was open about the fact that he was in the throes of alcoholism at the time and didn't get sober until 1989. Sheen described his mental state during the filming of that scene as being extremely precarious. He recalled, "I was so fragmented. I didn't have a clue who I was. I said, let's film this. I was so hopelessly drunk I couldn't stand up. But I had a sense that I could deal with this demon." He described his performance as being less about that character of Willard and more about his own personal struggle with addiction. Director Francis Ford Coppola tried to stop him in the improvised scene when he accidentally broke the mirror and injured his hand. But Sheen insisted on finishing the scene on his own terms. The blood that pours from his hand and stains the bedsheet was 100% real. The 1996 movie Secrets and Lies tells the story of a well-off black woman who discovers after her adoptive parents die that her birth mother is a working-class white woman. It became one of the most lauded films of the year. It won 3 awards at the Cannes Film Festival, including the Palme d'Or, was nominated for 5 Academy Awards, and took home 3 BAFTAs, including the Best British Film Award, and it won for Original Screenplay. But as is usually the case with director Mike Leigh's films, there was no screenplay when filming began. Leigh spoke at length about the creation of Secrets and Lies during an appearance at Film at Lincoln Center. He explained that he assembled his cast before any characters or even any real semblance of the plot had been formed, beyond knowing that he wanted to explore the subject of adoption. Together, they improvised what Leigh described as
a whole world from which we are then able to distill and structure the film.
The moment when the mother-daughter strangers meet for the first time is heartbreaking in its realism and simplicity. As the two sit side by side in a diner, the camera captures their entire interaction in a single long take that lasts for about 8 minutes before cutting. Leigh's improvisational approach enables a lengthy, dialogue-heavy scene such as this to unfold naturally in a way that wouldn't be possible otherwise.
I'm a bit of a disappointment to you, ain't I?
No,
You don't have to say that, darling.
I know.
Sidney Lumet's Dog Day Afternoon tells the true story of a man who attempts a bank robbery so that he can afford gender-affirming surgery for his partner. Al Pacino and John Cazale star as the bank robber and his accomplice respectively, and the two had just starred together the previous year in The Godfather Part II. Lumet was a filmmaker who previously held a strict no improvisation policy, but Dog Day Afternoon changed his entire mindset. Lumet explained in his book Making Movies that Frank Pearson's adapted screenplay was used for the structure, but the dialogue was largely thrown out in favor of allowing the actors to improvise their way through scenes with utmost naturalism being the goal. About 60% of the final film was fully improvised. When speaking to Larry King on CNN, Pacino confirmed that even the film's biggest and most iconic moments came from improvisation. The most well-known scene where he shouts Attica and riles up the crowd of onlookers was completely improvised.
Attica! 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 Attica!
The idea of invoking the real-life Attica prison uprising as a thematic connection to the bank robbery came from Lumet's assistant director, Bert Harris. One of John Cassavetes' greatest achievements as a filmmaker was his 1974 drama, A Woman Under the Influence. Cassavetes and Gina Rowlands, his real-life wife and favorite leading lady, both earned Oscar nominations for their work. This character-driven story of domestication, martial strife, and mental health struggles unfolds with Cassavetes' typical long and winding scenes performed exhaustively with hyperrealism. As Kent Jones wrote in an essay for the Criterion Collection, the film defies a century's worth of film theory, screenwriting tips, and film school orthodoxy. In the book Cassavetes on Cassavetes, the director revealed that his unorthodox process meant that A Woman Under the Influence took more than 3 months of shooting with 6-day work weeks to complete. Some believed his films to be 100% improvised, but he dispelled that notion, saying instead that he always brought the cast to complete screenplay. Only then would it morph significantly as scenes changed and evolved. He described the process as sticking to certain lines while allowing the actors to interpret them however they saw fit and then build upon the material. He wanted the actors to respond to whatever happened in the moment as if they were reacting naturally in real life. Cassavetes added, "It really is a product of a group of people coming in and interpreting their roles. Really, truthfully interpreting their roles. Everything that Gina did, she did herself. I don't try and control the scene, which is often confused and archaic." Kramer vs. Kramer tells the messy and honest story of a couple's divorce and their battle over the custody of their child. Dustin Hoffman and Meryl Streep are in peak form as the two halves of this destroyed marriage. Both took home Oscars for their performances as part of the film's 5 wins and 9 total Academy Award nominations.
I'm leaving you.
Honey, please. I can't hear.
Robert Benton's Oscar-winning screenplay provided a wealth of juicy material for the actors to sink their teeth into. But as a director, Benton brought a sense of spontaneity to the table that Hoffman fully embraced. There are various instances of improvisation that can be spotted throughout Kramer vs. Kramer. The most noteworthy ones arise in explosive scenes between Hoffman and Streep. Some of Hoffman's improvisation crossed the line, like when he slapped Streep right as a take started and smashed a glass against the wall beside her head near the end of a scene without warning. He also improvised some cruel lines that doubled as insulting personal comments about Streep's boyfriend, fellow actor John Cazale, who had recently died of lung cancer, all to force genuine reactions out of her. Hoffman used similar tactics on 8-year-old actor Justin Henry as well, who became the youngest Oscar nominee ever. Henry was never given a script, and his scenes were entirely improvised. The action-packed Police Story is a Hong Kong kung fu crime film from 1985, filled with goofy humor and jaw-dropping stunts in equal measure. Jackie Chan not only stars in the lead role, but also co-wrote and directed the film, delivering one of the greatest films in his all-around impressive body of work. The film's lengthy opening action sequence begins with a shootout, moves to an explosive car chase, then progresses to Chan chasing a double-decker bus on foot. All of these dangerous stunts were precisely coordinated, but the stunt that concluded the sequence didn't go according to plan. As Chan himself explained, when the bus stops, 3 stuntmen were supposed to crash through the windows and land on the car parked in front of it. But the bus's brakes didn't act as anticipated and sent the stunt performers through the windows too early. Landing atop a car might sound extremely painful, but the slight springiness to the metal and the added height of the vehicle were preferable to slamming directly onto the concrete far below, which is what ended up happening. Rather than squander the stunt team's pain by calling cut, Chan was able to stay in character and improvise the rest of the shot, incorporating the accident into the final film. After the big-budget disaster of his 1984 Dune adaptation, David Lynch reteamed with star Kyle MacLachlan for a smaller film with a twisted original script that only Lynch could deliver. The 1986 film Blue Velvet is a nightmarish descent into the disturbing crimes and perversions that fester below the surface of suburban America, as told with Lynch's signature surrealistic style. His work rarely adheres to the rules of the natural world and is often derived from dreams, the subconscious, and through his practice of transcendental meditation. In Blue Velvet, music is a key component and even inspired its title, with the Bobby Vinton song of the same name sung by Isabella Rossellini in the film. Another important musical number occurs when Dean Stockwell performs Roy Orbison's In Dreams into a construction light. In the book Lynch on Lynch, it was revealed that a version of this scene was planned, but that the end result came about through improvisation. The initial plan was for Dennis Hopper to perform the song as the film's villain, Frank Booth. Hopper and Stockwell began singing it together on set despite only Hopper being on camera. Hopper was so taken by Stockwell's performance that he stopped singing and simply watched him finish the song. Lynch loved the result and reworked the scene. The choice to sing into a construction light was another spontaneous decision, as Stockwell mistakenly grabbed a light used by the crew instead of the prop he was supposed to use. After making Husbands and before making A Woman Under the Influence, director John Cassavetes released Minnie and Moskowitz. The film utilized his unique hyper-naturalistic style, but injected it into the structure of an old-school screwball romantic comedy that eschewed all the rules. The titular characters of Minnie, played by Gina Rowlands, and Moskowitz, played by Seymour Cassel, form a troubled romance as colorful supporting characters breeze in and out of their lives. As with his other films, Cassavetes gave his actors as much latitude as possible to flesh out the characters themselves as they were shooting their scenes. But by placing his improvisational style into a more conventional structure, the framework of a traditional romantic comedy, Cassavetes was able to break through to wider audiences with Minnie and Moskowitz, as opposed to his other films, which were frequently labeled by his critics as self-indulgent and meandering to a fault. Given how meticulously choreographed and executed the John Wick movies are, it might come as a surprise to learn that improvisation still made its way into John Wick Chapter 3, Parabellum. Mark Dacascos, who plays the film's lead villain Zero, revealed to Vulture that his character was written to be familiar with Mr. Wick's reputation, but Dacascos wanted to push that part of his character further. In their first face-to-face scene, Dacascos began to improvise by moving uncomfortably close to Keanu Reeves to the point that their legs were touching. He explained, "I could feel Keanu's energy. It felt like his energy was saying, 'What the because my leg is touching his.'" Big kudos and credit to Keanu and Chad Stahelski, director, because either of them could have said, "Cut," but Chad let it go, and Keanu stayed in character. As the scene went on, Reeves picked up on what Dacascos was doing and joined in until the scene was finished. Dacascos recalled, "There's a beat, and I hear Chad from the back go, 'I love it, we're doing it,' and that's how that take evolved." Mikey and Nicky is an exploration of a toxic friendship from writer-director Elaine May. The film follows two low-level gangsters with a long and complicated history that bubbles back to the surface when Nicky becomes an assassination target. May had a background in improvisation as a part of the improv comedy duo Nichols and May, so her casting improvisers Peter Falk and John Cassavetes in the two titular roles was no coincidence. May's screenplay was written in an unusual style that was conducive to her and her cast's exploratory approach. The opening sequence is a perfect example of this, as the first 4.5 pages are written more like a book than a script. Background information, character details, and future tense occurrences are described without explicitly telling the actors what to do or how. The first lines of the film are Nicky giving Mikey instructions over the phone, but the dialogue itself was left completely unscripted. May's process for making the film typically involved letting Falk and Cassavetes improvise with 3 cameras rolling. It wasn't uncommon for multiple hours to pass between May calling action and cut. Though the film is only an hour and 46 minutes long, May shot a staggering 1.4 million feet of film stock, which is equivalent to around 14,000 hours worth of footage. Killzone is a gritty police thriller from Hong Kong. Simon Yam and Donnie Yen star as a police inspector nearing retirement and his incoming replacement, both of whom become obsessed with taking down a crime kingpin played by martial arts legend Sammo Hung. The first huge action scene finds Donnie Yen squaring off in an alleyway against Wu Jin, who would later star in and direct China's highest-grossing film of all time, Wolf Warrior 2. Given the intense coordination and danger involved, it's exceptionally rare to find improvisation in a fight sequence. But Killzone pulled it off. As shown in the behind-the-scenes documentary, the alleyway baton versus knife fight featured extensive improvisation, but the alleyway sequence wasn't in the script, and the first cut of the film had been completed without any fight scenes in it. Yen realized the movie was in need of action, so he took it upon himself to get additional funding and spend 5 days shooting the alleyway fight on the fly. Yen explained that he would have certain moves planned out in his head, but that he would implement them in different orders and combinations while sparring with Jin on camera. He explained, "It's like musicians. You jam, you know? You see all these movements. They're really not choreographed." Director Mike Leigh and star David Thewlis both took home the top honors in their categories at the Cannes Film Festival for their work on the 1993 drama Naked. Thewlis plays a nihilistic drifter, conspiracy theorist, and all-around terrible person in a loose narrative that follows his exploits through London in the middle of the night. As is always the case with Leigh's films, the entire project was born from extensive improvisation, research, and rehearsals. He and Thewlis had collaborated twice before on other projects, but Thewlis' screen time was brief on both occasions. With virtually nothing other than wanting to work together again on a project in which Thulis would be the lead, the two generated the main character and improvised a story through multiple months of rehearsals. Lee explained that he treated the character of Johnny as a receptacle for information and piled mountains of research about various subjects onto Thulis. This all came in handy and allowed Thulis to go wild in the memorable sequence in which he befriends a security guard and rants about numerous subjects and conspiracy theories such as the impending Y2K hysteria and the theory that barcodes were satanic. With 11 Oscar nominations and 6 wins including Best Picture, The Godfather Part II managed the miraculous feat of outdoing the original Best Picture winning The Godfather at the Academy Awards. Released just 2 short years later, this follow-up acts as both a sequel and a prequel to the first film, as it tracks Michael Corleone's growing ruthlessness while showcasing Vito Corleone's rise to power through multiple flashbacks. One of the film's strongest and most emotional scenes is the final confrontation between Michael and his older brother Fredo, played by John Cazale. The scene was already powerful in the script, but it was made infinitely stronger through an element that wasn't on the page. Cazale's choice to play the entire scene from a bouncy, low-backed chair was a perfect fit for the scene. The awkward position made his outrage all the more pathetic and ineffectual.
I'm smart and I want respect!
On a commentary track recorded for the physical media release of the film, director Francis Ford Coppola explained that the chair just happened to be on the set and wound up becoming a vital part of it, saying, "There was something about the chair that worked so great for the scene. The chair just kind of made him be so limp and springy. Sometimes you get lucky with a chair." They Live is a 1988 sci-fi action classic from director John Carpenter. Roddy Piper plays a homeless man who comes into possession of a pair of sunglasses that reveals the world as it truly is, a capitalist dystopia ruled by aliens disguised as humans.
What's your problem?
And both of the film's 2 most famous scenes were the result of improvisation. If there is any scene from They Live that the average person will be familiar with, it's the one featuring the iconic line,
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
and Piper completely improvised the line. The other well-known scene is the back alley beatdown between Piper and co-star Keith David. In an interview with YouTuber Rossitron, Carpenter and David explained that the fight scene was shoved into the movie after Piper had been cast. Piper was better known as a wrestler with the WWF, where he went by the name Rowdy Roddy Piper, and Carpenter figured that a movie starring a professional wrestler ought to make use of his physical abilities in a big fight scene that lasts for a whopping 6 minutes. The 1988 shooting script simply read, "And we begin the fight in the alley as Nada and Frank go at each other," followed by 3 mostly blank pages on which only "the fight continued" and "the fight still continued" is written, with all of the intricacies of the clash being worked out on location. If you or anyone you know needs help with addiction issues, help is available. Visit the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration website or contact SAM-HSA's National Helpline at 1-800-662-HELP 4357.